All right, we're ready to start the assembly of our individual blocks for our flower through lattice pattern. So I'm going to take my panel 1 bag and just pull out what's in there. So you should have your 9 12-inch blocks, which have your numbers pinned to them. You should also have a stack of 9 pieces of fabric with a template layout sheet on top of it, which has been paper clipped. And you will also have all of your unit sewing paper. So you're going to have your unit A1, A2, A3, A4, and A5, and you should have 9 each of these in your bag. So this is what we need to get going. So I'm just going to put these papers up at the top here. And we're going to start with the stack of your sashing fabric that has the paper clips on them. And what we're going to do here is cut these apart. So I use my add-a-quarter ruler for this. And the reason I do that is there's a lip on this ruler. So when I put it down on my first cut line, which is going to be right here, cut line number 1, so you'll notice that the cut lines are all numbered, and they're numbered for a reason. Because if you cut, let's say, cut line 7 and 10 first, you're going to be cutting through a piece that you shouldn't be cutting through. So you need to cut these apart in order, in numerical order. So we're going to do that. So when I put my ruler down on my cut line number 1, so I'm cutting right on the solid line with the lip down against my line. That little lip in my ruler compensates for the thickness of my paper clip, so my ruler is not wobbling. If you use a regular ruler, it's going to wobble on that paper clip. But this just makes it a little bit more steady and solid to cut against. So we're going to cut on cut line number 1. And again, if your blade is sharp, you shouldn't have a hard time cutting through this. So we're just going to move that away. So I didn't cut all the way through mine. So then I'm going to find cut line number 2 and do the same thing. So I'm just sliding my ruler up to get to the other. And then we're going to go to cut line number 3. We're going to find cut line number 4. She actually has 2 cut line 3s on here, so we'll just do the 3 again here. So we're basically just cutting our columns here. So this piece that has the grid on it is just a scrap piece, so we'll just keep that with our project in case we have to correct a mistake. Okay, so you can see here that I am needing some paper clips for the sections that were in the center. So I'm just going to clip those before I cut them apart, otherwise my paper is going to float away on me. So we've done 3 and 4, we're going to 5, and 6, and 7. So you can see now that because I have my paper clip on here, my stacks are going to stay together. My paper's not going to float away on me when I lift them up. Okay, let me move on to number 8. So all of our sashings are ready to sew onto our blocks for all 9 of our blocks that we have in bag number 1. So what we're going to do here is just do a bit of sorting. So we have our units. So I'm just going to sort them by unit. So you're going to have, on each one of these, you have a temp, an A, and it'll have a number dash another number. So this one says temp A4. That means it's going to be for unit 4-3 is telling you it's for section 3. So you're going, and it also says section 3 here on it. So I'm just going to put that on top of my unit 4 pile. This one says temp A5, so that's going to go with my A5. This one says temp A4, it's going to go with my A4. Temp A3 goes with unit A3. This one's A2. This one's A5. This one is A5. This one is A2. A1. A5. A1. A3. And A3. So now I have my sashings with my units. I'm just going to move these back up out of the way. So we're going to be working with 1 block at a time, just so there's no, we're not going to get mixed up and get our blocks all mixed up. So in your stack, you're going to grab your block number 1, and you're just going to put the rest to the side for now. So again, you have your 1, making sure it's right side up. So my line is indicating that I'm right side up. And we're going to cut this now. If you go to your page 3 of the addendum that we wrote for the pattern, there's a diagram and instructions on how we're going to cut this apart. So you're going to need a ruler, and this is just a 3.5 by 18 inch ruler. So something narrow like that, a 3.5 or a 3, 4, doesn't really matter, but something that's not so wide and not so long, so it's not so bulky. So you'll need that. And at this point, you can use the same mat that we used for cutting our panel apart. If you do have a rotating mat, this would be an ideal place to use it. I do have one, and I will use that, but I will show you how I would do this if I didn't have one. So if I'm to cut a 3-inch strip off the left side of my block, I would cut that. But then if I have to cut up here, I'm going to put my block in the bottom left-hand side of my table or desk and put it on a table or desk that you can actually walk around to this side of your desk, and then you can cut this way. So it's just a matter of putting your block in the corner of your space so that you're not having to twist your block, because you will not be able to twist your block to do this cutting unless you have a rotating mat, okay? But if you can walk around your desk, it's not a problem. It's the exact same thing as having a rotating mat. So rotating mat is great if you have it, but you don't need it. But I'm just going to pull mine out because I can't walk around my desk. So again, I'm going to put this on my mat. I'm going to take my number 1 sticker off, and I'm going to put it on my mat the way it's supposed to be. So right now it's right side up, so that I know that my block is right side up, my sticker is still right side up. And this panel 1 we can now remove and get rid of, because we have all of this in our panel 1 bag. So we can remove that. And I won't need this right now. So I'm going to take my page 3 instructions, and it's telling you to take your ruler and cut a 3-inch slice off the left side of your number 1 block. So again, you want to make sure you're cutting nice and square here. So I'm nice and straight down here and at the top, and I'm on the edge of my left-hand side of my block. So I'm going to slice through that. I'm going to remove my ruler without moving that piece that I just cut. So I'm going to leave that there. If you're working on a non-rotating mat, just walk to the left side of your desk and place your ruler at the top. So with your 3-inch line at the top of your block, and you're going to slice right here. I can rotate mine slightly, so I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to cut another 3-inch slice off the top of my block. So I'll come back so that my block is right side up. And before I continue here, before I start taking this apart, and I should have done this before I actually started cutting, but we're going to do it right now. If you have a camera handy on your, I'm just going to use my phone. I'm just going to take a picture of my block, so I know that this is what it looked like when I started. So this is what it should look like when you're done sewing it onto your papers. Okay, so if you get something, if you get mixed up or get confused and you've rotated a piece that you think is not sitting right, just go back to your picture and just put your block back together again like a puzzle to make sure that you've got it sitting the right way. Because this is where, if you make a mistake, you've rotated a block, we sew it in wrong, you're going to need another piece to replace that, and that's why we have that 5th panel in your kit. Okay, so we've made the first 2 slices, and you're going to now move these just slightly away from your block, just keeping them in the same spot. So now you have a smaller square here down at the bottom right. And now we're going to cut another 3-inch block off the left-hand side of the remaining big square. So again, make sure you're nice and square. Make sure you've got 3, and we're going to cut. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to walk around to the left side of your desk, or if you've got a rotating mat, you're going to rotate it, and you're going to cut another 3-inch slice off the top. So this time we come back to right side up, so our sticker should be at the top. We're now going to move these 2 away, just slightly above what we just cut. Don't move this one that we just cut. So this one is still cut. So now we're going to cut a 3-inch slice off the bottom. And we're now going to move these 2 to the side, and we're going to cut another 3-inch slice off the left side. So you have, this is what you should have when you're done cutting that block. It should look like that, okay? So at this point, what we're going to do is mark our sew side of our piece so that you know which side that you're going to be sewing on. And I'm just going to use wonder clips for that. You can use pins. I don't like using pins or that many pins just because I don't like stabbing myself with them. So I like to use clips. So I'm just going to, I'm not sure if you can see this on here. So on your page 3 of your pattern, you can see here that there's red lines on the sides of the pieces that we just cut. That's your sew side. So that means that you're going to be sewing on that side. So I'm going to put a clip on the piece, on each piece, indicating which side is the red line. So on this piece here, Unit 4, Section 1, the red line is here. I'm going to put a clip on that side. Up here, there's going to be a clip on the right hand side. On the long piece, it's going to be on the left hand side. On this one, it's going to be on the right hand side. This one's going to be on the top. This one's going to be on the right. This one's going to be on the right. This one's going to be on the left. This one will be on the right, and this one will be on the left. And the last one here will be on the bottom. So if you look back at your picture again, just make sure that your red clips or whatever color clips that you have or pins are on the same side as the red line of your diagram. Okay, so at this point we're ready to do the assembly of the blocks, which means we're going to assemble 1 unit A, 1 unit 2, 1 unit 3, 1 unit 4, and 1 unit 5 with these pieces. Okay, so we're going to set that up right away. So if we take our unit A1, we have 4 sections in this unit. We have the 2 unshaded sections, which are going to be 2 of these, and the 2 shaded pieces are going to be 2 of the sashings. So we're going to need, so the section 4 of unit 1 is right here. So we're going to take that and put it here, so the sew side is up. Then I'll take section 3 of my sashing, and it says section 3 on here. So you're going to take one of those pieces. I'm just going to remove my clip. And you can see here that the sew side is indicated on this piece. So I'm just going to take one of these and set it up like that with my sew side up, and then I'll put my clip back on. Then we want section 2, which is going to be this one. So again, section 2 is indicated on my paper, like this, section 2. And my sew side is up here. So I want to make sure my sew side is at the top, same as my clip. And I'll put this back on. And then section 1 is going to be this guy, and it's the sew side is up at the top. So we're going to do that for all of our papers. So this is for one of these papers. So we're going to take one of these, pull it off, and put it on top of there. So we're going to do that one. So I'm just going to take the rest of those and put it there. And I will just move my mat over, bring this closer to my machine, put my iron here, and we're going to start sewing. So we're going to take our section 1. So we want to put our sew side is going to be line number 1, but we're going to want to put this piece upside down. So I'm just going to rotate it so that my clip stays at the top, and I'm going to just going to center that piece under section 1 of my paper. So my section 1 is right here. So you want to make sure that you have enough fabric covering that. So as long as you can see a little bit of fabric on each side down here, you're going to be fine. And I'm going to just take my glue stick, just flip this over, and just glue right in the center of that section number 1, and then put this back on like that. So now I can remove this clip because it's secure on there. I am going to take my fold template, and I'm going to use my little 12-inch @1/4 ruler. So once you're glued on, you're going to take your fold template and you're going to put it on line number 1, the solid line. Fold against your template. Take your ruler, tuck that lip against that folded paper, and you're going to trim. So leaving this folded, because that's our sew side, you're just going to remove this template. You're going to slide this piece down, and you're going to just put your sew sides together. And again, I just want to see a little bit past my paper on this side, and you're going to have lots on this side. So I'm going to take that to my machine. If you're scared that's going to move, you can take your glue stick and just hit the sides of your fabric, glue it together. So you're not gluing in your sewing area, but just on the edge of your fabric. And we're going to go to our machine and do some sewing. So before we actually sew, so what you want to use here is an open-toed foot for paper piecing. We just find it easier because you're sewing on a line. You're not actually sewing a traditional 1/4 inch. So I'm going to just put my open toe on my machine. And I'm just using a neutral thread for piecing. And we're going to be sewing on line number 1. So you're sewing on the solid line. We're going to start sewing 2 or 3 stitches above that line, and I'm just going to sew right off my paper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm just putting my needle down just slightly above my line. Cut my thread, and I'm just going to go over to my iron and press. So once we have that one on, we're going to come back here. So we've sewn on line number 1. That means we're done line number 1. So we're moving on to line number 2. So line number 2, same thing. You're going to put your full template right on the line. I'm going to bring up paper and fabric because we've sewn part of our seam allowances in here. So I'm just going to grab where the 2 fabrics are joined together, hold them, pinch them together, and just rip it off like that. Just like a band-aid, nice and quick. Then you're going to put your add a 1/4 in, and you're going to trim. Again, move your ruler away, keep this folded, move your template out, bring down your section 3 piece, and same thing. You just want to make sure you have the piece that we're adding. You want to be able to see it on either side of our paper, which we do. And again, if you want to just put a little dab of glue here, you can. So you can see I'm not putting a lot. It's just to secure it so that by the time you move over here, it hasn't shifted on you. These are pretty short, so not usually a problem. So again, I'm just going to start sewing above my line, and I'm sewing right off the paper. Okay, and again, we're just going to push this over and give it a press. We're going to come back, and we've sewn line 2, so that means we're moving on to line number 3. This one has no stitching in it yet because it's parallel to the one that we've just sewn. So you just need to bring up your paper. So fold your paper, tuck your ruler in, and trim. Move your ruler away. Just keep this folded. Move your template out. Sew side is up here, so I'm just going to move my clip, and we're going to, so this one here, it's pretty exact, so you want to make sure that you're right to the edges of your outside lines here. So if you just put and I can see my pieces right there, and I have a little bit more room on this side, so I'm just going to move this over just a tad. So both of my outside lines right here, I can see through the paper, are on top of the piece that I'm adding. So some of these are going to be a little tight. And there's 2 or 3 like that, I believe. And then you're going to move back to your machine. And again, I'm starting to sew above my line. So line number 3. over. And our unit A1 is done. And you can see the petal is flowing in the right direction. So if I were to put this back right here, you can see that it follows what we've cut. All right, so we're going to do the same thing now with our unit 2. I'm just going to move those away. So I'm going to grab my unit 2 paper. So we need one of those. So I'm just going to take one of those, put that back. So our section 1 is going to be one of our block pieces. And that one is, so if you go back to your diagram, you want unit A2 section 1, which is this one right here. But we're going to start stacking with 4. So, or with this section has 5. So section 5 is going to be this one. So we're going to put our sew side up like that. Section 4 is also a petal piece, and that one is this one. So we're going to put that sew side up. Section 3 is one of these. So you're going to take the sashing piece that says section 3. You're going to pull one of those out, sew side up, so like that. Section 2 is also a sashing piece. So you're going to take one of those and make sure your long side is up as it's your sew side. And our last piece is going to be this one, and the sew side is over here, so we're going to put it like that. So that's how your section 2 should be stacked. These ones we're going to put back with the remaining A2 papers to sew. So we're going to start the same way. We're going to take our section 1, sew side is here, find your line 1 on your paper, which is right here, so that's your sew side, so it should be up just like your clip. And you're just going to rotate this upside down. So you want to make sure this stays at the top, because we're going to be gluing the wrong side to the wrong side of our paper. So again, we're just going to make sure that we just see a smidge on each side of our paper, and we're going to just glue in the middle of section number 1. So once you're glued, you can remove your clip, and then you're going to put your fold template on line number 1. Tuck your ruler in, and trim. Pull your ruler away, leave this folded, just take your template out, slide your second piece down, and just line up your edges at the top. Again, I just want a little bit past my paper. And we got lots on the other side. And again, if you want to glue that together, you can. I'm just going to put a little dab here, just like that. And now I'm going to go and sew line number 1. And again, I'm sewing starting 2 or 3 stitches above my line. And I'm just sewing right off the paper. And I'm going to press that piece over. Come back to my mat, find line number 2, put my fold template on line number 2. So we've stitched a little bit here for our seam allowance. So again, I'm going to grab paper and fabric. Left hand's holding the paper, right hand is grabbing the two fabrics where they're joining and just rip it off your paper. If you rip your paper or a chunk of paper off, it's not a big deal. Just it doesn't matter at this point. And then you're just going to trim that off. Move your ruler away. Keep this folded. Move your template down. Move your third piece down. And line up your. So this time we're worried about this side of the paper. So again, you just want to see a little bit of the sashing fabric on that side, and then just dab a little bit here. I'm going to take this to my machine, and I'm going to sew on line number 2. So again, I'm going to sew just a few stitches past my line number 2. Okay, so once you've sewn, you're going to go and press that over. Then I'm going to come back. And now we've done line number 2, so we're moving on to line number 3. So if you've stitched past your line number 3, just bring up your paper and fabric and just rip that off. And then tuck your ruler in, trim, move your ruler away, keep this folded, move this down, bring down your 4th piece, making sure your clip's at the top. And then we're going to, so this section is over here. So you're going to line up. So again, so the edge of your section 4 here, you want to make sure you're up to the dotted lines because that's your seam allowance. So this one too is going to be tight. It's going to be pretty much right on from line to line. So you want fabric from here to here. Okay. So I've got that on. Make sure this guy stays in place. And then I'm going to move to my machine and sew on line number 3. So again, so you're starting above the line, and this time I'm just going to sew right off my paper. Press that guy over. Then we're moving on to our last line, which is line number 4. So we're going to put our full template on line number 4. So again, we're bringing up fabric and paper, holding the paper with your left hand, grabbing the 2 fabrics where they join with your right and just ripping it off. And then you're just going to tuck your ruler in and trim. Bring this guy down. So again, your clip's at the top. So this one you have lots extra, so you can, we're going to shift it down. I'm just going to put it in the center. And then just that like that, and then we're going to go to our machine and we're sewing on line number 4. So I'm starting above my line, and I'm just sewing right off my paper. And then we're going to press that over. So if we put this back here, you can see here that the petal is formed the right way. And again, if you look at the picture that we've taken with our camera, you can see that it's still looking the same. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to our A3 unit. So we're going to bring those pieces down. So we need one paper of A3. And we'll put the rest up at the top. So we have 6 sections on this one. So we're going to find section 6 of our A3, which is going to be this one here. So we're going to stack this with sew side up. Then section 5 is going to be one of these ones. So this one here, which says section number 5, we're going to take one of those pieces. So again, make sure you keep your fabric right side up. So sew side up and right side up. I'm going to put that back on the pile. Section number 4 is also a sashing piece. So again, section 4 is on the paper here, section 4. We're going to take one of those and stack it up, sew side up. Then our section 3 is a petal piece. So that's going to be, section 3 is right here. So again, sew side up. Then we're going to put section 2. So you're going to take one from that pile, and sew side is also on the long side, so like that. And our last piece is section 1, and our sew side is at the top. So that's the stacking for your A3. So again, we're going to take our paper, find line number 1. That's going to be our sew side. So you're going to pull your first section down, clip at the top, line 1 at the top, and you're just going to rotate this so it's upside down, but your clip is still at the top. And we're going to center this on here. So again, you just want a little bit of fabric on either side of your paper, and then glue in the center of your section. Remove your clip. Then we're going to go on line number 1. So your template's on line number 1, you're going to fold against it, tuck your ruler in, and trim. Move your ruler away, keep this folded, keep your sew side up, move your template down, bring your second piece down, and you're just going to line up your sides. So again, we have lots of room here for this one. And again, if you want to just put a little dab of glue here, you can. And then we're going to move to our machine and sew on line number 1. So again, I'm just starting above my line. And I'm sewing off the paper. So when I'm saying sewing above the line, you have to make sure that, like, this broken line here is your seam allowance, so you want to make sure you're sewing above that line when you're sewing. So you're going to go to your iron and you're just going to press that one over. We're going to come back here and find line number 2. So you're going to put your fold template on line number 2. Fold this over, tuck the ruler in, trim, move the ruler away, keep this folded and up at the top like this. Bring down section number 3. We're going to remove that clip, and we're going to, so as long as there's a little bit of fabric on the right side of your paper here, you should be fine, because your seam allowance is right here. So again, if you want to glue this, you can. And then we're going to go to our machine. So again, I'm starting above my line. And I just sewed right off my paper. Then we're going to go and press. All right, then we come back to our table and we're going to find line number 3. See that there's this piece is shorter than the piece over here, but yet we have our long piece first. So that indicates to me that there's a problem somewhere, and there is actually a misprint on the papers here. So your line number 3 on the paper should actually be line number 4, and this line should be number 3. So this, you're gonna have to do this for all of the A3 papers. So for the remainder of our stack here, you're gonna have to make that correction, as well as in your panel 2, panel 3, and panel 4 bags. All of the A3 papers need to be corrected so that you do this correctly. And you'll see when if you do trim this line first before this one, it won't change anything. It's not going to matter in the project. It's just when you go to pick up this piece and put it here, you're going to see it's way too long, and the next one is not going to fit here. So the lines need to be reversed. The labeling was just reversed on them. So we're just going to go to our line number 3, which is the long line here. And we're going to bring up the paper and the fabric. So we have 2 seams here that we're going to be ripping off the paper. So I'm going to grab all of that and just rip it off like that. Tuck my ruler in. And trim. So now I'm going to just slide my template out. I'm going to slide this piece down, and I am going to, just as long as I have a little bit on this side, I can see I have lots over here. As long as my fabric goes to right there, I'm fine. So I am going to just line these up. And again, you can grab your glue if you want to and just glue. And then we're going to go to our machine and sew on line number 3. So again, I'm starting above my line. And I'm just sewing 2 or 3 stitches above or below my line. All right, so we're going to go and press that over. So now we're doing line number 4, which is the shorter line here. Again, paper and fabric up, and then just grab that. So you can see here that I had already trimmed this once before, so I'm just trimming the piece that I just added on. So if you did trim before you relabeled your line, that's what it's going to look like. So it's just that it's been trimmed already. It doesn't change anything. So move your template down. This is up. Bring down your next piece. And this one you have lots. You can see your paper's here, your fabric's out to here. So you can just put it to the one side. Line up your edges. Just glue those together. And now we're on line number 4. press that one over. And then we're going to move to our last line, which is line number 5. We're going to fold against that one. Tuck our ruler in and trim. And then we're going to add our last section, section number 6. So sew side up. And we're just going to line that up. So again, this one, you want to make sure that the outside lines are even with the outside edge of your piece. So your fabric should be from here to here. And you don't have a lot to spare here. So make sure you can see that the edges of my fabric right there are in line with my line, and the same thing here. So I'm going to just glue that together. And sew on line number 5. This came threaded. Okay, so again, I'm starting above my line. And I'm going to press that last piece over. You can trim these pieces that are sticking out here if they're bothering you. So again, if you put this back over here, you can see that this is following the picture on our phone. Okay, so we have 2 more to do. We have unit A4. So I'm going to grab one of those papers, put the rest up there. So this one has 3 sections. So section 3 is this long guy. So we're going to take one of those. And our sew side is at the top, the long side. Section 2, same thing, sew sides on the long side. So I'm just going to grab one of those, like that. And our section 4, section 1, or unit 4, section 1 is this piece right here. And that's going to go with sew side up, like that. So again, we're going to find our line number 1. So it's up here. We're going to slide this down. And we're just going to flip this from side to side so that my clip is still at the top. And I'm going to center this piece onto my piece of fabric, and I'm just going to glue this in place. So I'm just gluing in the center of my paper. And now I'm going to trim on line number 1. So I'm going to put my full template on line number 1. Fold that over. Tuck my ruler in. Trim. Move my ruler away. Slide my template out. Slide my section 2 piece down. And I'm again just centering my paper on the piece that I'm adding, like that. And again, you can, this one's a little bit longer, so you may want to just hit that with the glue stick, then move to your machine, and you're sewing above your line, right off the paper. cutting mat, and now we're finding line number 2. So again, on the line, we're folding over, and we're trimming. Move the ruler away, keep this folded, move your template down, and you're just going to put this on top of your last section, section number 3. And again, I'm just centering this on. And I'm just going to put a dab of glue. So you can see I'm not adding a lot of glue there. And I'm going to sew on line number 2. Alright, we're going to press that over. This one goes like that. So this one you have to be careful when we're going to do the assembly. You want to make sure that this one is the right way here. So this is a good example of where you have the picture on your phone. So you can see that the pedal, this pedal is up here, so this has to be up here. You don't want to have it rotated down this way because now your pedals are going the wrong way. So you want to make sure that these pieces are all sitting the right way here. Okay, we have one last unit to do for this square. So we're going to grab one of our unit 5 papers. So this one has 5 sections to it, I believe. No, 6 sections. So 6 is this long one. So we're going to take one of those, and your sew side is the long edge, just like on your paper here. So that's section 6. Section 5 is also a long one. So I'm going to just take this, put it right side up, and again your sew side is at the top, long edge. Then we have section 4, which is a short one. I'm just going to pull that one out. Section 3 is one of these. So section 3 is the little square at the top left, and you want to make sure your clip is at the top. Section 2 is one of these, and again you want to make sure your sew side is at the top, like that. And your section 1 is this one. So this one's going to be sitting this way, is clip at the top. Alright, so we're going to find our paper, we're going to find line number 1. So line number 1 is up here. So again, a good indication, this line is way shorter than the long side, so you know you're sewing on that short side. So again, we're just going to flip this like that, making sure our clip is still at the top. We're going to center this on here, so you want to make sure you have fabric up to here, which I do. So I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. And then I'm just going to glue in the center of my section 5 here. And this glue stick is pretty much empty, so I'm just going to show you how to change the refill on here since I have to do it. So the refill looks like this, and all you have to do is just bring up your glue all the way up. You just pop this off, take the blue cap off of your refill, stick it on, pull it off, and then just crank it back down again. So if you do have these pens, when they're empty, don't throw them away. You can get refills for them. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit more glue here. All right, so we've got that glued. So now we're going to go to line number 1, and we're just going to fold that back against our template, put our ruler in, remove our clip, trim, slide our template down, keep our paper folded, slide down section number 2. So section number 2 is in the center of your paper, so if you just center this on here, you'll be fine. So we're going to just dab the glue on here, and we're going to go sew on line number 1. So again, we're just starting above the line, and we're going to finish a few stitches below. So then we're going to press that over. And now we're moving on to line number 2, which is up here. So we're folding against our template, tucking in our ruler, and trimming. And we're going to bring down section number 3, take our clip off. We're going to match up our sew sides. So again, if you just line it up, so you want to make sure you've got fabric from here to here, which I do, because that's from here to here. So I've got fabric on either side, which I'm fine. So I'm just going to glue that together and sew on line number 2. That one over. And now we're moving on to line number 3. So we're folding against that line, tucking in our ruler, trim. We'll bring down section number 4, which is this one. This one again, just going to put it in the center, and then we're just going to. So once you get used to the process, you don't have to glue your edges together. Just, I find a lot of my students like it because they don't have to worry about the fabric slipping away on them. So we've sewn on line number 3. We're going to press that over. Now we're moving on to line number 4, which is one of these long ones. So we're going to put our full template on here. So here you're going to have some stitch lines from our other 3 lines. So you're going to fold that all, and then you're just going to rip these guys off. Just grab that and rip it off like that. So you can see here I've ripped some of my paper. It doesn't matter. We're just going to tuck the ruler in like that and trim. Keep that folded. Remove your template. Bring this down and put this on here, and as long as your whole paper is on top of the fabric so I can see some either side here, I am good to go. So this is where the glue is handy on these long pieces, because by the time you get down to the bottom, sometimes you'll find that that piece that you're adding has shifted over and it's not quite, you don't have quite a quarter inch seam allowance. I'm just going to glue that. So now I'm sewing on line number 4. So if you're not using glue, I would needle down at this point and make sure that my edges are lined up. So I just sew right off the paper, cut my thread, and we're going to press that over. And now we're going to go to our last line, which is line number 5. Again, we're just going to rip these 3 seams off. Make sure you're still on your line. Tuck your ruler in. And trim. And we're going to add our last piece on. Again, you just need to center your paper onto here. Just going to glue I'm sewing on line number 5. So again, I'm sewing above and I'll just sew right off my paper. Then we'll press that last piece over. And this piece should be sitting like that. Again, before we continue, you can double check with your picture on your phone or whatever camera you're using to make sure that it's sitting, all the blocks are sitting the right way, okay, which ours are right now. So a couple things. We still need this label, so make sure you keep this label around, this number 1 label, because this block is going to be number 1. So we're at a point where now we're going to trim our blocks before we do the assembly. But before we do that, I just want to make a quick note about the pressing. In paper piecing, pressing is the most important step. You can be off your line sometimes a little bit, as long as it's not matching up to something, it won't matter, it won't change the project. If you have give in your seams when you're pressing, so if there's play in the seam here, when we take the paper off, that piece is going to expand because of that give in the play in the seam here. So it's very important when you're pressing that your seams are nice and crisp and tight and that there's no play in them, okay? So now we're just going to take our pieces one by one and we're going to trim. And again, I'm just using a straight edge. It can be anything. I'm just going to use my add a quarter ruler. I'm just going to flip the lip up. And I'm just going to trim on the very outside lines of my unit. If you cut on that second line, you're cutting off your seam allowance. It means you're redoing that piece. There is no fixing that. You have to start over again. So please do not trim on that second line. You're trimming on the very outside line of your unit. So I'm just going to go all the way around. So same thing on the very outside line and right on the line. Here. So something else on your paper piecing, you'll notice that I kept my trimming to the very end. I do that with all my paper piecing projects, just because if it sits for any amount of time, you don't want your seams to start unraveling, and once you've trimmed them, they unravel a lot easier than if you don't trim them. Okay. So again, you're trimming on the very outside line. We've got one more to go. The other thing too, when you're trimming multiple pieces like this, make sure that you don't have something else underneath where you're trimming, because that can cause a problem as well. Okay, so now we are going to sew our pieces together. I'm just going to clean up here a little bit. Put this back on here. So we are going to go back to your Chinese lattice pattern on page 7. So this is what you're going to see. So this is the illustration that we're going to use to assemble our unit. So we're going to start with unit 1. So you can see 1 and 2 right here. So you're going to sew 1 to 2. The little white arrow here indicates you're pressing, so that you're going to press towards unit 2. Then we're going to add 3 and press towards 3. We're going to add 4 and press towards 4, and then add 5 and press towards 5. So we're basically sewing them in numerical order. So you have your 1, so your 1 is going to go to your 2, like that. So we're going to go sew that seam. You can take some of the paper off. I usually leave mine on. For this one, I will leave it on. It depends a lot on your machine. Some machines don't like it. Ours are okay with it. So the reason I leave it on is there's less distortion. So just line up your edges, and you're going to be just sewing. You can sew on the line, or at this point you can put your 1/4 inch foot back on. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take my open toe and put my 1/4 inch foot back on. pressing towards unit number 2. So we're pressing towards this one. And just before you start pressing, just make sure you have your pieces are the right way, which I see mine are not. So I'm going to rip that apart and do that again. So when you're ripping for paper piecing, I just go in between the two. You don't want to do a lot of pulling. I'm just putting my ripper in between my two pieces here. Piece, you gotta be careful you don't rip into it, so. Alright, so we're gonna do that again. We're gonna put this back here. I'm gonna fix this. So this piece should be sitting like that. Just make sure all the other ones are right. That's like that. That one's right. This one should be sitting like this as well. So we're going to flip this one onto your 2. And we're going to go sew that again. Better. So we're pressing towards 2. So when you go to your iron, you're just going to tuck that. So the other indication here that you've got this right is if you look at the back side, unit 1, unit 2, they're both the right way. Before I had one upside down, one right side up. So they should both be right side up. Okay. So this goes over here. Section number 3 is right here. So this is going to go like this. And these guys should be lining up here. Those guys, you don't want to shift like this when you're doing this. So make sure that when you're putting it together that they're one on top of the other. So we're going to go sew those two together. So when you're sewing here, make sure the first seam that you've sewn doesn't flip to make a twist. So now we're pressing towards 3. So again, if I put this like this, you can see my unit labels are all right side up. So this is going like this. So now we're going to do 4 onto here. And this one doesn't have any match points. So again, make sure your seams aren't twisting. press towards the 4. And then we're going to add our 5th piece. So this one needs to go like this. So here we're going to have a couple of match points again. So these two need to follow as these two do. So again, we're going to put this on. You want to make sure that those two are one on top of one another, like that. All right, so we're going to sew those two together. This to the 5. So all your unit labels should be going the right way, which they are. So we want to make sure that we put this back the exact same way that it was sitting when we first started. So this is where the picture comes in handy. So we're going to take this picture. So your yellowish petal should be down in the bottom and your darker spot should be up at the top. And now we're going to just put this back on to here. You can put it onto here and pin it on. You can also go back behind here and put block 1. And again, underline your number 1. And that's block number 1. So you're going to do the same thing now with the other 8 remaining blocks in your panel 1 bag. So that's going to be block 3, 5, 13, 17, 15, 17, 25, 27, and 29 are all going to be done exactly as we did with block number 1. So all of bag number 1 is done this way. And then we're going to move on to panel 2 bag. So I'll be right back with that.